Well, we did it just before the new year. This channel passed 100,000 subscribers, and I want to thank all of you for watching, commenting, and especially those going the extra mile and supporting the channel on Patreon. Thank you. It's humbling that of all the channels you could spend your time watching, you guys are choosing this one. So to celebrate passing the milestone, I wanted to make a video talking about some of the stuff I wish I knew before I began this channel. And I decided it would be slightly less self-indulgent to bring on a guest to chat about it with me rather than just waxing lyrical at the camera. If you're not familiar with the Tentacruel channel, firstly, you should get on that, but secondly, it's a channel run by Martin, who now works as the head of product for MuseScore and Audacity, as well as being the haver of strong opinions on all things music and user interfaces. I'm a big fan of Martin's work. We're both dads as well as YouTubers, and we have a lot of shared philosophy around making videos, though we don't always agree on everything, as you'll see in the interview. My gift to myself is to not spend weeks of time editing this, so it's going to be a little less production heavy than usual, but I hope it's still informative, and I really hope it encourages people who think that their area of expertise or interest might be too marginal or niche for a mainstream audience to think about starting a channel and sharing their knowledge and passion with the rest of us, because that's what makes YouTube so special. But without further ado, over to my chat with Martin.
Well, first of all, I want to say congratulations on passing 100,000 subscribers. I think you got there quite a bit faster than me as well. My channel, it is pretty much a music channel, and I talk about a lot of music philosophy stuff. My own personal background is that I've studied classical music composition, and before that I was in punk bands for years. I just think a lot about music, and I got a lot to say, and my channel reflects a lot of my thoughts. And I also like to take the mickey quite a lot, so I do that a lot on my channel. So there's a lot of stupid crap as well.
Well, I wanted to dig into that a bit, about how you ended up on YouTube.
I had just finished a master's in composition. I did that a little later on in life. I'd studied design, graphic design like you, and then figured that I was going to be a composer, and I was going to go to rehearsals, and I was going to travel around and do that kind of thing, which I was very much looking forward to. Myself and my wife, we decided we wanted to have a kid. The kid turned out to be 2 kids. I was working at Microsoft actually then, and I remember thinking, gee, I don't think I'm going to be able to be a traveling composer. I'm probably going to be locked into the house for a couple of years. I should probably find a way to occupy myself. I'd always been a musician, but I didn't want to let those skills atrophy. And I was a very big YouTube junkie. And I thought, with my background in design and in animation and also music, maybe I'll do a channel about music, about all these things that have been floating around in my head for years. I'll talk about those kinds of things. So that was my motivation. How about you?
I think similar. I was a bit of a YouTube junkie. A big part of it was the pandemic for me, actually. I joke about it being my pandemic baby, apart from my real baby. It was something that would basically be a constructive use of my time. I think a big thing that motivated this style of content, making a channel around design, about my own area of expertise, was seeing channels like Midlife Crisis and Legal Eagle, where people were explaining their own kind of profession to a lay audience. And I've never seen designers really do something like that. Just everyone is a science communicator, it seems, on YouTube. But there've been so many since, like, Vsauce on, doing that kind of pop science stuff. Been only in the last few years that other industries and other professions have kind of got in on this idea. But people do find design an interesting topic if you make it easy to understand and kind of not full of jargon and deliberately aloof.
That's exactly what I was going to say. If you take out the miserable jargon that you and I know is just endemic throughout design in general, there's no one more boring to sit in a room with than another designer talking about design. Usually it's the most boring possible topic.
There's some navel-gazing tendencies in the design industry. Let's leave it at that.
I'd go further than that.
Okay.
I'd say the industry's filled with twats. I mean, I think the success at your channel is you steer well clear of all that stuff. You do make it accessible, and you actually make it seem like a profession that isn't unmercifully dull.
Thank you. That's high praise. I wanted to chat about the process of becoming a YouTuber and what you expected it to be like versus what it was actually like.
Both of us, our YouTube careers started when our kids were born, I definitely thought, I'm just going to make the best video I think I can make. And sometimes you'd see, oh, well, that one didn't do very well, or this one did a little bit better. But early on, no one watched my videos. My first 7 videos were basically swing and misses. You know, what I definitely didn't expect exactly was it's actually quite hard to construct an airtight argument in a video. Some of my early videos were things that I already knew a ton about. It's normally the case I will try to cover something that I already know a reasonable amount about, but it has happened where I cover something I know nothing about. But even in the areas where I thought I was literally on top of all the material, I put out a video and then comments would start coming through. You've contradicted yourself there, or have you thought about this way of thinking about this particular thing? And that definitely happened in the first 5, 6, 7, 8 videos that I made. And I think I got a lot better at sort of predicting what those kinds of comments might be. So in a way, like that's one positive, I guess, aspect of YouTube, was it kind of made me more reflective. I mean, I didn't see that coming at all.
You can't let that voice get too much into your head when you're writing, because then you end up with all this over bloated script full of qualifying statements.
Some people do that where let's say, okay, before I continue, I have to like check a couple of boxes here. I'm not saying this. I'm not saying this. I am saying this, and I'm kind of saying that, and I just check out at that point. I find that like if I have to keep adding qualifiers to my video, I've kind of failed in communication. It's that's one for me that I keep coming back to.
I think the comment that kind of makes me laugh and also frustrates me is when someone says, "Oh, this was a really great video, but there's so much of just your face talking. It'd be better if there was less of your face." I'd be like, "Yes, it would be better if I had enough time to edit and find a piece of B-roll for every section. But do you know how much longer it would take to produce a video where there was no footage? I mean, you have videos where we don't see you, and I can only imagine how long it takes to get all of the visuals that accompany everything. And yeah.
You do have a very repetitive face.
I know, it's constantly the same.
It's just always there doing the same thing, just yapping. Okay, so to be fair now, I do tend to not feature very much in my own videos. I might pop in every once in a while, but generally speaking, I like using archival footage and stuff like that. And there's a different sort of twist on video essay. I almost feel it's an older version of video essay, a little bit more kind of Ken Burns. I mean, like my big influences are Ken Burns, not from an argument point of view and not from a content point of view, but definitely from a style point of view, Adam Curtis. It can be maddening to have to piece together, to write a script and then go, I need to find the footage that will make this work. But that can also be quite liberating, because you might just find a piece of footage that works so well that you end up going back and changing the script. But at the same time, I have done enough to camera performance style stuff where I realize that that's its own like agony. Okay, I come in, I'm here at 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm ready to go, and I get through my whole script. And then I think, okay, that's fantastic, I'm done. And then I check out the footage and I find that there was something on my shoulder the whole time and it's driving me insane. Now I'm going to have to After Effects out this thing that was on my shoulder, or I'd have to reshoot the whole thing. I'm almost happy to be doing things the way I'm doing it, because I'd much rather, I think both have their advantages. Videos where you're in it, even for a little bit of time, there's a sense of engagement that comes with that. I've done a little bit of analytics testing on videos where I'm there and videos where I'm not. And I can see just a little bit more engagement in the footage where I'm there. But again, it's all about performance. It's all about your style. Some people are just ridiculously watchable, you know?
Yeah. And I think that's probably something that anyone who would think about becoming a YouTuber should know going in. It's all a series of trade-offs.
Just to go back to something we mentioned before, I thought would be fun. If there is one comment, and by the way, for anyone watching this, comments that come through on videos, you don't get one comment pointing out that you're wrong about something. You get a couple of thousand of them. And it's completely fine for people to do that, and they should. And believe me, we hear you when you say those things. But the problem is that most people see something you've said in a video, get a little bit hot under the collar about it, message you about it, and don't read through the comments to see if anyone else has said the same thing. So you just keep getting the same comment over and over again. And by the way, it doesn't end. So videos from 4 years ago, I'm still getting the same comment on them. Like, not on a daily basis anymore, but they still come through. Yeah. And there's one or two that still drive me up the wall. So I guess I'm wondering, like, are there a couple of comments or even one particular one that...
Oh, yeah, I can tell you exactly the two. So my most recent video where I originally had said coronation in the script and then changed it to when she was coronated, the word is crowned. I had 57 comments about this within a 2-day period since it blew up. At least on the coronated crown thing, they're correct. The thing that annoys me more is on the American Psycho video, people saying, I thought he said Cillian Braille. At least twice a week, I get the same comment, which is incorrect. He says Cillian Rail. It's in the screenplay. It's in the subtitles, which Cillian Rail is probably a cocaine reference, considering the source material. So those are the two most frequent and annoying comments that I get on my channel.
I can pick one. So it became so annoying that it's almost become funny now, which is that I have one video about Star Wars where I talk about the music of Star Wars and how it was applied and how I thought it kind of got a bit crappy with the new movies. And I suffer from a linguistic problem called being Irish. We say film. I'm going to rent a film. And I say the word film about 4 times in the opening, and I continue to say it the whole way through. And I should have just used the word movie. The thing is, the comment is just usually just one word. It's F-I-L-U-M, film, because I put so much effort into that video. I sort of dug deep for that one. And for it to be undermined by something so stupid, it was just infuriating for me. Although I have to admit now, it doesn't bother me anymore because I'm so far beyond that time because I hadn't really taken off at that point.
I think for the longest time, YouTube comment sections had this reputation as being full of trolls and infantile, but I've found, at least in the kind of edutainment YouTube space, commenters tend to be very supportive and quite eloquent and generally very nice people. The ratio is way in favor of the positive comments.
I think the effort you put in gets reflected in the comment section for sure. I think if you make a kind of a lazy video where it's only really surface level, you kind of get surface level comments about it. If you really dig deep and you do a lot of research and reading, then you'll find academics jumping on and kind of going, if you're interested in this particular philosopher, you should read this person instead.
Every video I release, there is someone who in the comment section adds something that I was, ignorant of, that I think, I wish I had included that. In terms of the process of making videos, do you have any kind of things that changed in your workflow that you were like, I wish I had known to do that when I started?
I guess the refinement of scripts for me. I'll rush out an argument for a script. Like, here are the beats, here are the things I want to say, here are the areas I want to touch on. And then I'll write a very first version of it. And then I'll kind of put it away in a drawer. I'll usually go and study something else, look into something else, come back about 2 days later, look at it again. And then right in front of you, you see the problems with it. And then of course, my favorite part, which is you start introducing jokes and you realize, well, hold on, if I tell this joke here, I can lead into that joke earlier by sort of setting it up here. And that, I love that, where the script begins to work together, where it's not just, I hate videos where they list facts. I've done a lot of research. Here's a bunch of things I discovered. Thing number 1, this thing. Thing number 2, this thing. And it's just so boring. I really love, if there is a list of things, for that list to be obscured. I like to kind of take a particular part of a video, read it through to myself a few times, and I'll just pace up and down the room and I'll start describing to myself, what that particular part is. And I'll say it as if I'm talking to you, as if I'm talking to a friend in a cafe. And I'll just do it a bunch of times. And then over a period of time, you naturally begin to organize the material in such a way that it sounds better when it's spoken. The way it sounds is really important to me. For scripts, I end up usually writing it nicely, eventually, after a lot of revision, then speaking it back again, recording that, and then rewriting the script in a more kind of vernacular way so that it kind of works better when you actually speak it. And then as you do that, you just find all these little moments. Something that shouldn't be funny can suddenly become funny. Something that wasn't particularly poignant, if said the right way, can become poignant. I love that kind of thing.
The video essay is in that rich media experience of it not being just words. If you cringe at recordings of yourself, do not do this, because you will listen back to recordings of yourself. You will see your face, but you will definitely hear your own voice back a lot. And if that makes you cringe, perhaps this isn't the way to.
I don't like that advice.
You don't?
No.
Okay.
I think that, okay. Full disclosure, I'm married to a cognitive behavioral therapist.
Uh-huh.
And you will hate the way you look and the way you sound in the first couple of recordings. But, stick with it as long as you're happy doing it. You don't feel it's an absolute nightmare. And maybe after a period of time, you'll suddenly find what it is about you that is actually interesting. And that can become your thing. There's a lot of personality-based YouTubers out there. And you can be a different person on camera. It's not remotely like what you're like in the real world. You can completely curate it. Be a different person. Don't listen to Linus.
Okay, so you disregard my first tip, which is to look for a different medium if you're not into how you look and sound. We were talking about this the other day. I think a big part of the reward of making videos for me is the research and the writing. It's the process of understanding something and then being able to explain something. That's rewarding as one step, and then the kind of communicating side of recording and editing and piecing together the presentation as a creative outlet are very rewarding, but they take so much time. And if you could get the same satisfaction out of that just writing and make a Medium article and publish a blog, I would say go for that, because it will save so many hours of your life for other activities. But for some reason, that just wouldn't scratch the itch for me. How about you?
Yeah. The visual medium does it for me. What I would say is maybe do write the Medium article first, shop it out, get opinions back from it, see if people are into it. And then if you feel like, oh, I got a winner here, then maybe that's your first video,
Time management becomes an extremely important thing, especially if you become a parent. It changes your relationship to free time, and you will treasure it in a different way that you did not know that you would before that happens. I don't know. How have you found juggling the time management side?
I describe my life very much as competing things that are on fire. And and one of the things that might be on fire is a YouTube video. You're kind of going, I need to get back to that. I haven't touched it in a couple of days. If you leave something go cold for 2 weeks, it's a bit more painful to get back into it again. But then you'll get an email. Someone needs a document right this moment, or a leak might come through your ceiling. Ring the insurance company. But then I'll often find, like, maybe at lunchtime, I might have an hour or two to spare, maybe really early in the morning if I wake up, very much 10, 11, 12, 1 o'clock at night. They're usually my YouTubing hours, and whatever I can claw on the weekend. I'm curious to know whether that's sort of the same with you, or whether it's slightly different. Like, have you any structure, I guess, is the first thing?
Yeah, I think we're in very much the same boat, where my YouTube time is normally 10 o'clock until 1 a.m. Is when you've done a whole day's work, and, parenting duties and other things. That might not be your most sharp, focused time of the day. Recording a video, sitting and talking to camera, just like a fraction of the actual process. Probably the smallest and shortest part.
It can often be the research phase that's the longest, and also the hardest. Not all the time. Sometimes it just flows,
Normally it's the research and writing. I think editing takes more than writing for me. Research probably more than the editing. There is a real dividing line between people doing original research and trying to do videos that take an angle that nobody has taken before, and people who are just regurgitating a Wikipedia article or a list. And I think that's what makes it challenging and also rewarding, is doing research and finding a new narrative that emerges out of that research.
I mean, I say this as a viewer of YouTube, as a connoisseur of YouTube, rather than as a content creator. Nothing drives me more nuts than some new, very polished thumbnail coming out talking about, let's just pick something, Stanley Kubrick, right? Stanley Kubrick. And it'll have some sort of like secondary title, which gives you some sort of idea about what the angle of this particular video about Stanley Kubrick's going to be. And then you open it up, and right away, you could almost instantaneously, you can see that the person talking about Stanley Kubrick has literally nothing to say. Or it's just internet research. It's someone who kind of went, I want to talk about a topic. A bunch of other people have already talked about this topic. And I figure that by referencing the other 2 videos that have already been made, and then throwing in my 2 cents and basically saying nothing, as a viewer, I would just say to someone going into YouTube, especially if you're talking about movies, keep away from internet research. It's the last 20 years. Actually, it's not even the last 20 years. It's the last 3 or 4 years is well covered. And then anything famous beyond that will be covered. And sometimes you might find some really great material. Sometimes you might find a documentary or something like that. Sometimes you'll find something on Google Books about a certain topic. But where you can really, really, really find the interesting information is when you step away from the internet and you go to like a really good local library, or you just buy a book on a certain topic that was been properly researched. Could have been written now, could have been written 100 years ago. And you'll find the amount of sources it has, that different avenues will be so sprawling and so rich that it'll probably give you 4 or 5 different videos worth of material.
Where do you hope that the video essay format will evolve?
It has to mature, right? But I kind of wonder, as all of us get properly older, let's talk 20, 30 years in the future when we've been doing this a long time, and maybe the technology has advanced incredibly, and it'll always be a complete pick and mix, right? No matter how bad we think the worst YouTuber, Logan Paul or Jake Paul type out there is, I mean, they're not even close to the worst anymore. There's going to be even more objectionable horseshit out there. What I'd hope for is that the deep stuff gets more depth,
Yeah.
The shallow stuff, I just seems to always find more amazing ways to be even more shallow and even more crap.
What makes YouTube an amazing place to be part of is that it is like a movable feast, and whatever you want to find is here on YouTube. And I think that's an amazing body of knowledge to contribute to. And that would be a reason I would suggest that if you're really passionate about a subject you think is quite niche, you're the kind of person I would encourage to become a YouTuber, because we both have areas of interest to us that are pretty niche compared to the mainstream. But we found an audience. And I think that that's the brilliance and genius of YouTube.
Yeah, I'd say so. I'd also say as well, like, lean into your personality. There are some YouTubers I've seen recently. One guy called, Bobby Broccoli?
Oh, yeah.
Has just found this really off-kilter format for displaying information that's just really captivating.
He uses Google Earth to produce it.
Google Earth to do it. Yeah, it's weird. Check out Bobby Broccoli. And I see that and I kind of think, like, you got personality, something to say, and an interesting way of communicating information. That's another thing I'd really encourage people to do, is try stuff out and be chaotic. That's what I really love. I love chaos. Just artistic, strange, off-kilter ideas, regardless of whether or not they're failures. Try stuff out and definitely put yourself out there, and don't be afraid to be a little bit nuts. I'd love to see more punk on YouTube. That's actually one of my favorite things about it. Punk is alive on YouTube, I think.
That's a nice sentiment to end things on. Punk's not dead, at least on YouTube. Big thank you to Martin for chatting with me and sharing his advice. Huge thanks as always to the patrons supporting this channel on Patreon, which you can join for as little as $1 a month. Also, I'm hoping to make my videos in a more collaborative way moving forward, so if you are a video editor or animator, creative coder, or even someone interested in helping out with research, please let me know your details by filling out the form linked below the video. I couldn't have reached this milestone without all of you, and I'm really excited to see where the channel goes from here. My name is Linus, and I hope I'll see you in a future video.